our moderator. Thank you so much. Please give them all a round of applause.
Thank you, Gabby, for also being a wonderful youth chair. You've been doing a great job so far. As Gabby mentioned, my name is Kevin Nguyen, and I'll be the moderator today. I'm also one of the directors for the conference, so I'm honored to be closing off. Our panel is on global collaboration and partnerships for meaningful youth engagement. So as for today's theme, we've been focusing on career development and global impact. And that kind of more so focus on for today's session on youth leadership and in the professional field. So what we're gonna kind of dive a little deeper on is to understand how can people come together as people have different viewpoints, skills, and experience. And on this panel we have Leah Chang, who is a human rights advocate and also another director of IYC. We have Dr. Al Aslan an executive director, Alliance for Shared Values. And we have Samantha Rick, a UCLA scholar, researcher, and advocate, specializing in health and mental health across high school. I'll kick it off, and we're gonna have each panelist introduce themselves. So Leah, please tell me, where are you from? What's your background? What do you do?
Hi everyone, I'm Leah. As Kevin mentioned, I'm a 17-year-old human rights and gender equity advocate. I'm also a director here at the International Organization of Youth. A little bit more about me, I'm from Toronto, Canada, so it's like a 5.5-hour flight from here if you want to think about it. I'm also a first-year student studying sociology and political science at the University of Toronto.
Yes.
Hi everybody, my name is Alf. I'm the director of Alliance for Shared Values. We are an umbrella organization for several regional partners, and these partners work on bringing people of different backgrounds together around the table around the social responsibility project. Every year, about 100,000 or so Americans and Canadians come together around such projects. Personally, I was trained as a computer scientist. I used to be a professor of computer science, but my full-time job now is to be director of Alliance. I was born in Turkey, and I came to the States as a graduate student before many of you were born.
Hello everyone, my name is Samantha Ray, and I'm a graduate student here at UCLA in the Social Welfare Department. My background is in psychology, public health, and research. And currently I'm an intern as a school social worker here in Los Angeles, but I do have a background in the medical field. I have worked at UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, serving various diverse populations, predominantly the Black population, youth and adolescents in the pediatrics department, and also UCLA Health, primarily serving individuals with disabilities, including cerebral palsy of all ages. But I do want to highlight my current work right now, because currently I am working with a lot of what we call newcomer youth, which means youth who are coming from different countries seeking asylum here in America.
Wow, impressive. I think our panelists come from a wide range of background experiences, so I'm really excited to dive in deeper. My first question for you all is collaboration. It's a word that's thrown out a lot. You want to collaborate, let's work together, but sometimes it is performative or more so a buzzword. So I'm wondering, what does meaningful collaboration look like when personal identities can be diverse and their personal decisions can be deeply entrenched?
I guess I can start. I think for me, meaningful collaboration is not simply including young people as tokens or as idle participants, but as active partners in initiatives and in policies and in practices. And it means engaging young people and diverse groups and marginalized groups, not only as a moral imperative or as a quota that needs to be checked off, but as a way to truly improve policies that serve everyone. And I think what is so often overlooked is that young people, especially young people from diverse backgrounds, have such valuable and unique lived experiences. It's not necessarily about the degree you hold or how many jobs you've had or what organizations you affiliate with, but it's the experience of being on the receiving end of unjust policies and practices that really shape the way that we look at the world. And I think that's such a unique skill set and knowledge that not many others can bring to the table. And I think that it's truly come time for us to speak up and say, look, we don't have a seat at the table. How can we fight to make a difference and actually be heard? And in institutions and in spaces where we've repeatedly demanded to have our needs met and to have our diverse voices heard, where that isn't happening, maybe it's time to step away and to build our own table and create our own spaces, to have these critical discussions for how to build a better world.
Well, collaboration by itself is an achievement. If people are able to come to the stage of collaboration, it will not be free of problems. The differences will be there, as you mentioned. The different identities are there. But for people to come to the stage of collaboration, that is a big achievement. First, I think we should recognize that. Now, for collaboration to take place, for people to come to this stage, there are some preconditions. First of all, there has to be some trust building. People will not collaborate with others if they don't trust them. And to build this trust, people need a genuine interaction. And they need to identify some common goals and some common identities. So in this room and in other places of collaboration, we come from different backgrounds, ethnic, religious, social class, etc. Those are all different. Names are different, backgrounds are different, but we identify as people who seek social justice, or we identify as people who want more peace in the world, less violence in the world, or we want to help people who are in need. So to identify a common goal and a common identity, yes, we are A, B, C, and D, but we are all humans first. If you are able to achieve this, the higher, broader common identity, and if we are able to agree on a common goal, then it becomes much easier to solve the problems that occur during collaboration. I think facilitating people to discover each other as fellow human souls, discover the human in each other. I think that's the first big step. And then it's a lot easier to solve other problems that occur during the collaboration.
Yeah, I really like what you said there, and I want to build off of that because the first thing I thought of, Kevin, when you mentioned collaboration and how sometimes we do use that as a buzzword, I do think back to my work right now and the various systems that I've interfaced with, and I can only speak for California. But here in the States, our systems are very separated. So there's not a lot of room for, collaboration. And I think that what I've seen is the thing we can do to kind of bridge those gaps is creating space for connection, meaningful connection between others. And I think doing that alone will go miles, essentially. Going back to working in the school systems, I've noticed a pretty large disconnect, not just between, the teachers and students, we hear about that a lot, but also the faculty and families, right? And then families and children. Like all of these different individuals on an interpersonal level are just not connecting. And I think that goes even back into the other systems we talk about, such as, the police system, the carceral system, as well as the hospital system. We just need to stop viewing ourselves as separate entities and finding where we can communicate, and bridge those gaps where, it's just that the doors to the hospital are just doors, not actual metaphorical doors that we can kind of bridge into. And same for the school system, the gates are not just the gates.
So I'm hearing, at least from Leo, you can mention more about highlighting the diversity, how there's strength in diversity, learning people's different perspectives, lived experiences. And Dr. Alpi can mention strongly about having common ground so that people can really connect into why are we really here and what's the purpose of our collaboration And Sam, you emphasized the theme of having that space for connection. So that Al also mentioned that too, where you need to have that connection with board, have genuine, authentic relationships in order for even meaningful collaboration to start, which is a really big feat. I'm curious also too, at least with working with so many people from different backgrounds, have y'all ever experienced a change in your values or approaches? And if so, what did that process look like?
I think that, just to be frank, in today's world, political differences and value differences have become more than just about ideology or just about the economic and political issues that we face, but they become about the social issues that many of us face on a daily basis. So the question is not, how do I have discourse with someone who I disagree with, but how do I have discourse with someone who contests my identity and how I go about the world and the fundamental rights and freedoms that I have? So I think that's kind of made it a lot more challenging for us to have these discussions with people that we do disagree with, especially when those differences span not only nationality and culture, but the way that we see the world. So I think that what's so essential right now is approaching conversations with kindness and openness. And as you said, understanding our shared humanity. I mean, at the end of the day, we see the world differently, we approach the world differently, and we seek to solve problems differently. But we're all citizens of the world. And I think if you ask every single person that you see on a daily basis, do you want to make this world a better place? They would say yes. Our only difference is how we seek to do that and how we seek to improve the issues that we see on a daily basis. So I think when it comes to working with people who differ from you, not only in nationality or culture or gender or where you're from, but in the way that they see the world, we need to approach with openness and say, I'm willing to interrogate the taken for granted assumptions that I operate on a daily basis. Are you willing to do the same thing? So when we close ourselves into ideological and political boxes and we're unwilling to uproot our own identities, I don't think we can engage with others.
So the example in my life for changing the view after meeting with people, after working with others, was an instance in Harvard Seminary. Many years ago, I was taking classes there. These were on interfaith relations, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and other religions. And so the class was people of many religious backgrounds. And each person explained kind of their history and the way they look at things. And I'm a Muslim by religion, and as a Muslim, of course, we sympathize with the suffering of the people of Gaza and Palestinians. Of course, we also condemn any acts of terror. So in that course, the Jewish participants explained what the state of Israel means for them. After wandering around and being fearful of persecution in many, many countries for hundreds of years, finally they see a country where they can find a refuge in the worst case in other countries. So I have not heard this perspective before, and I got a better understanding of what the state means for them and why they look at the actions of the state in a different way than the rest of the world, or at least Muslims. So this didn't change my empathy, stronger empathy for the Palestinians as Muslims, but I had a better understanding of their view of that state and how they differ from others. I think this was kind of the most striking example for me. And coming from a country where there were many kind of social fault lines, I adjusted my views and I learned new perspectives multiple times. I first, with the first non-Muslim person in college, the first American when I came here, and I learned about the American Constitution and the values. So I broke my stereotypes about non-Muslims, about America, about many other things throughout my life. But I guess that Harvard Seminary experience was the most dramatic one for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what I can add to the conversation here because I think Leah really did a beautiful job of summarizing exactly how I feel on that. And I think maybe what I can add just is how I've practiced what Leah is talking about, which is, really going into yourself and figuring out what are my biases, what are the things that I don't even realize I think about others, because so often we expect others to be able to do that, but we don't practice that ourselves. And I think that is really the first step, is kind of turning inward and really thinking about what are the things that I believe in? How do I see the world? How do my own intersecting identities come up when I interact with the world and other people within the world? And how do other people also do the same thing? And I think that's where we can kind of start to find connection within our differences, is when we realize all of us have different connections to both power and oppression. And when we map out what our individual connections are, I think that it leaves room for more mutual understanding between one another.
This is how to summarize, looking within and understanding our own blind spots, our own identities, what it means to us in our own history, will be very effective as to understanding our awareness when we enter a connection with someone else. And as we enter a connection with someone else, there's the hope and expectation that they do respect us, and that there is a lot of empathy, but also that there is an agreement that we're going to exchange in an open-minded conversation. And I think what Al kind of discussed was the idea that everyone has their own history, and that kind of shapes people with who they are, why they are, and the way that they operate and what they believe. And at least being a lifelong learner, to be open-minded and to be understanding is very important to goal, so that we can keep on remedying issues as they come up. Next question for panelists would be, how do you ensure that collaboration doesn't just serve as status quo, but actually lead to transformation and justice?
Well, I just kind of want to echo a lot of the conversations that we've been having within our own organization of the International Organization of Youth, is that when it comes to collaboration and challenging, again, the taken for granted assumptions that we have and operate on, it's not about hierarchy or who's in the leadership position. It's not about the titles and the accolades and the resume. It's about working horizontally and democratically to ask the members of your team, what do you want out of this organization or out of this collaboration? And I think so often, especially in the space of international affairs, we get stuck in this idea of advancement and of upward mobility. But if that's all we're thinking about, then we forget about the meaningful collaborations and networks that we're truly seeking to foster. So I think that when it comes to approaching collaboration in a way that we haven't done before, we need to approach people, especially young people, people with less experience, people who don't have experience in your country, approaching them as equal and meaningful partners, not saying, oh, I'm above you, I can help you to get ahead, but instead saying, how can we work together on the issues that we care about?
So for collaboration to serve real transformation, I think two kinds of conversations are needed. One of them is among the collaborators, and the second kind is with the recipients or the target audience of the collaboration, who's going to benefit from the collaboration. So one program that we are very proud of, and that relates to this conference, is the Young Leaders in Civic Engagement Program, where we both help and also award groups of high school students and college students who engage in a civic engagement project, social responsibility project. And in these group projects, we have observed that when these young people engage with their target audience whom they want to serve, or their potential partners, how can they collaborate? When there is a real conversation, they identify what is more meaningful, what is likely to lead to a transformation as opposed to just maintaining the status quo. For instance, if it is some kind of a relief or help project, what kind of help can we bring that will help them in the longer term? For instance, a group of high school students organized a campaign to collect educational materials for the victims of domestic abuse. As opposed to bringing them toys or other things, these are educational tools that will help them educate themselves, enrich their education, teaching certain skills to the target audience. So I think if the collaborators are sincerely having a conversation among themselves, and more importantly, with the recipients of the service, they are likely to identify what is likely to transform as opposed to just maintain.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of answer a little similarly as to you, whereas this is a very broad question, and I think I would need to know more about what it is we're collaborating on, and I think that's the question we need to ask. In any given partnership that we're doing with someone else, we need to ask ourselves, why are we working together? What is the purpose, and what is our goal? And the questions we need to ask, we also need to think about who we're asking them to. Because it shouldn't just be the administrators, it should also be the community members that whatever it is we're aiming to do are going to be directly impacted. So yeah, I think it's about really thinking about the purpose, and I think that goes back to the title of this plenary today, which is, for meaningful youth engagement, how do we create that meaningfulness? And it's really going into everything with purpose. An example I can think of in my current work is at the school I work with, we are having a little bit of trouble with different youth who identify from different identities, who are coming from different countries who don't always, get along well with one another, saying hurtful things to one another. So in that case, what we decided to do was to kind of implement what we call a little bit of restorative justice. And for those of you who are not familiar with what restorative justice is, it's a lot less about penalizing those who don't agree with us. It's a lot less about penalizing those who engage in behaviors that we normally would not condone, such as biting or saying harmful things to one another, and actually creating a space to understand where these behaviors are coming from. And we call that trauma-informed practice as well. And I'm really speaking with my social work hat on with some of these terms. But basically what I mean by that is just understanding that when we are engaging in collaboration with one another, we all come into this space with our own histories, like we've all talked about today, and those histories can really impact, how we see the world, our minds, how we think, our body, how our body reacts, fight or flight, and our spirit, how we connect everything going on around us to the higher power that we might or might not believe in. So yeah, that's what we ended up doing. We did a lot more restorative justice in our school, and we really noticed a marked difference in some of those kiddos who are really sitting down in what we call restorative circles, which is, basically a circle where we all sit down, talk about where we come from, where these things are happening from. And I think it's really created a space for also the adults to see like, oh, this kid is not just trying to talk back to me. This kid is overwhelmed, and this is how they're expressing feeling overwhelmed.
It sounds like for Leah and Alf, it's more structural in the case that when you do collaboration, you have to set your intentions, and that you have to make sure that there is a relatively horizontal structure so that everyone can have a fair say in how the collaboration is structured. And in terms of what Alf kind of shared, it reminds me of community-based participatory research, in which if you're working on a population, you have to be mindful of what are the true needs of that population, and also is that population invited to deceive? Do they even hold power as you are doing this collaboration, so that you are actually making a meaningful difference instead of doing a top-down, it's a bottom-up process. And it sounds like for Sam, you kind of mentioned in practice, when you are serving and supporting populations, that it's important to keep in mind that we are not punitive in nature, that we are practicing restorative justice, so that we are truly hearing people out, and that we are not perpetuating an carceral system, that we are trying to rehabilitate in a true, meaningful, effective way, so that we can all learn and grow and accept that people are always learning and growing and need support from the community. I'll go to the next question. What would y'all say is one practical step people in the audience can take to foster unity in their own communities, especially when there's a lot of intergenerational differences?
I think the fundamental step that we need to take to engage and collaborate with others, especially when we disagree with them, is to question our own intentions. I feel like subconsciously, so many times when we try to engage with people, we're stuck in this box of what we already believe, or the cultures and the histories and the identities that we're raised within. So I think when it comes to meeting people that you might disagree with or meeting people from diverse cultures, you need to go in with the lens of, again, interrogating the taken for granted assumptions that inform your worldview. I mean, when we're trying to learn from people, and I'm saying truly learn from them, not just absorb the information that they're giving you or learn more about their culture and their identity or their ideology, but really change and grow as a person and as an advocate. We need to look at ourselves and say, what are the biases and the ideas that I hold? And how can I engage with this person to change them for the better? And I think that we talk about all of these practical steps that we can take to better engage and collaborate and build better organizations. But at the core of that all is being willing to say, look, I've been wrong before, I'm okay with being wrong again. And truly learning from and engaging with others through that lens to really, truly work together to make the world a better place, rather than saying we're defined by our differences. We need to be defined by our shared values and our shared humanity.
I'll just take it from the shared humanity term. That is the most inclusive identity that we all belong to. And I think fostering unity, we need to take steps toward that, sometimes indirectly. Because sometimes when you declare your purpose directly, people will just put up walls, or they will not be interested, and they will go away, and you end up with usual suspects, as we call them. So I want to give an example from India, and it's going to be from the interfaith domain, because that's most of our work, intercultural interfaith. So there was a study done by a professor at Brown by the name of Ashutosh Varshney, known as the India Study. As you may know, in India, there have been many riots among different groups, especially between the Hindus and the Muslims. Muslims are a minority there, with a population of over 100 million in a country of over 1 billion people. So at difficult times in some cities, there have been riots and there have been deaths, violence, inter-ethnic, inter-religious violence. So Dr. Varshney studied where there is more violence and less violence. And he discovered that in the cities or towns, when there is greater civic engagement between Muslims and Hindus, there is much less violence. Sometimes there are no deaths in riots, or there are no riots. When there is less civic engagement, there is more violence. So what is civic engagement? He identified two forms. One is institutional, one is everyday. Institutional means we come together as members of a professional group: engineers, scientists, doctors, mechanics, or people who love a sport. So we come together in the context of playing a sport or a sports club, maybe unions, even political parties. So what does this facilitate? Now the differences are set aside. One is Hindu, one is Muslim, but now they are engineers, or they are Indian engineers, or they are professionals, or they are lovers of soccer or whatever is popular in India, right? So they unite at a higher identity, more inclusive identity, and they have a common goal. So facilitating indirect gatherings, indirect opportunities to work together, to collaborate, and identify with a higher, more inclusive identity. I think that's the key to breaking the barriers. That doesn't mean people forget who they are, but they also remember they are not just that. They are also this bigger identity.
Yeah, I think for me, it really all goes back to approaching every conversation, every action, every event with curiosity. You know, really asking the why and, where does this come from? I think, working one-to-one with people, or even thinking of structures of power, just thinking about, where did this start from, and what is the function, the correct function. in conversations with people we might not agree with, like we've talked about on this panel today, I think, all of you, just think about the last time you had a disagreement with someone. You probably thought more about like, oh, like, I can't believe they even think this way. Why would they think this way? How could they think this way? And I think maybe shifting some of those thoughts and questions to, what happened along the way to make them develop this belief? Or what happened along the way to make them act out in this way? And I think, changing it to curiosity and really trying to think about where we came from and how we are here now goes a lot of the way.
So it sounds like Sam just kind of processing what you're sharing. When we were able to acknowledge our power, position, our privileges, we're able to acknowledge where we're at in collaboration, along with where the other person may be at. And in order for us to truly connect, that we will need to this kind of more so like acknowledging the impact we want to make and to truly connect for that person being. And I know for Alp and Valia, y'all were mentioning, I guess Valia, you mentioned shared unity, and for Alp, you mentioned a higher inclusive identity. And I think having that kind of mindset where we are not just one identity in one part of our history, that there is a bigger aim and objective that we will need to talk and work through all together in order to make this transformative change. I will leave us with one checkout question. And so if you could leave the audience with one lesson or insight about your work, about global collaborations and partnerships, what would it be?
That's a lot of pressure, Kevin. I would say one lesson or insight, I guess, that I want to end on is that trying to foster collaborations and build connections and fight for your seat at the table, that loss is a necessary part of the process. I mean, I'm sure all of us in this room have experienced partnerships or roles or applications that don't work out. And I think especially in today's world, we can get so easily discouraged by that. But just because certain opportunities or connections don't work out doesn't mean that the causes that you care about and the thing that you're fighting for aren't valuable or don't matter. Loss and rejection and redirection are necessary parts of the process to learn and grow and to fight for a better world. And I think that the only true loss is when we become apathetic towards the world around us, when we allow that loss and that rejection and the things that don't necessarily work out to overwhelm us. And I think that the only true loss is when we become numb to the issues that we face and that our communities face and that the world faces. And I know that it's kind of a cliche, but it's really true, is that we only truly fail when we fail to try. So even if things don't necessarily look like they're working out, the trajectory of the world isn't looking positive, the fight for change and the fight to create a better world is not one that you're fighting alone. And there will always be people out there that agree with you, that want to push for a difference together. So look for that community and don't be discouraged by the small redirections that you get along the way.
So one insight we gained from the activities of our partner organizations is that for years, they still do that, but for years they have been organizing intercultural exchange trips to different countries. And in these trips, academicians, religious leaders, civic leaders participate. And we have observed that this shared experience in a positive, safe environment for them helped create many friendships among unlikely people. In one particular trip, this was a academic/religious leaders trip. One of the participants after the trip told me At the time, I was on the board of the Institute for Interfaith Dialogue in Houston, Texas. He said that some of the participants in this trip, normally I wouldn't talk to them. I wouldn't spend time with them. He saw them those other groups as kind of marginal or different. But he said, because we trust your organization, and we know that you are impartial and you're going to organize a good trip, we participated. Now I got to know them better. So thanks to you, now I have new friends from groups that I wouldn't befriend normally. So I think the lesson from this experience, which is repeated many times, is that if you as an individual or organization are able to become the trusted third party, disinterested third party, to facilitate genuine human conversation and shared experience, that helps facilitate future collaborations. Because all of the collaborations essentially start with friendships. One individual meets with another, and they start an idea together, and a third person joins them, and then it becomes a larger movement. Or maybe it becomes an organization, not a movement, it becomes part of a movement. So if as a person or organization, you're able to be the trusted third party, create a safe environment, I think that becomes a catalyzer for many, many good things to come. And I think this conference in particular is an excellent example of that.
Yeah, I guess what I would have to say is to just show up. Showing up makes a world of a difference. All of you sitting here in front of me and also, virtually online, you did the very first step, which is to just show up and be here and give time. One of the most important things, one of the most valuable things you can give to anyone is your time. And I think all of you showing up here today to be part of our global community is already doing a lot in and of itself. So you know what? Round of applause to all of you. Congratulations, you all showed up today. And I hope that you can remember to do that in the work that, whatever it is you're planning to do after this or are currently doing, I hope you can remember to show up for yourself and the people around you and the difference that you want to make. Just put time into it. I think it's easy, like Leah mentioned, in the world that we live in today with so much going on, to get lost and there is no point. Where are we going with any of this? But it will just be that if you stop showing up. So just keep remembering to keep fighting, keep going, and also build some coalitions. Connect to coalitions. I like what you said about, making partnerships. Networking is such a big thing. And, coming from a first generation background as myself, I had no idea what networking even meant. And being in academia, networking is so important. And working with NGOs, networking is so important. And all networking is just saying hi to a stranger, going up to someone that said something that maybe interested you, giving a compliment, all of that can lead to, a collaboration like that continues 10 years down the line. I want to share a quick story of how I even came to sit here on this panel today, and it was just me doing just that. I was leading one of my classes in Luskin, social welfare, and my professor, I needed to check in with him about something completely unrelated to everything we're talking about today. And he was like, oh, we're gonna have this talk later if you wanna stop by and get some food, because I always forget to bring my food. And so I was like, okay, sure, free food, definitely. And I came and I sat, and that is where I met Ali. And here I am now, about 1 or 2 years later, getting to continue to work with him, not because we have the same interests, which we do, but because I kept showing up and kept meeting with him and kept saying hi to him. And I think that's what you have to do as well.
Thank you, panelists, for your insights. We'll reserve remaining time for Q&A in the audience. If anyone has any questions?
We have one online if you want.
Question online. How can global partnerships effectively amplify youth voices and ensure their meaningful participation in decision-making processes?
Can you see? Can I get the question?
I can repeat it again. So this is from Patience Mitutu. How can global partnerships effectively amplify youth voices and ensure their meaningful participation in decision-making processes?
I can say. I think if there's the intention, whoever are the initial organizers of the project or the organization, if there's the intentionality, there are different forms, ways of facilitating that participation. If it is an organization having a representative of the youth on the board or one of the program steering committees, that is one way. Or there can be a kind of a representative of the youth voice in the decision-making bodies. But in our experience, in the projects that we support or organize, having direct participation and definitely allowing youth to design the program, the project, the product, that has two benefits. First, there is greater ownership by the youth. Secondly, if the recipients, if the group receiving the service are or include youth, then it becomes much more effective because the youth were involved in the process. I think if there's the intention, mechanisms are easier to find.
I think that speaking as a young person, I think that it's more than simply about having young people in the room. I mean, I know I can see faces in the room who have experienced this. There are so many times where we're in a room simply observing heads of state or high-level officials talking with each other, and we're just outside observers to this inside process. And I feel like in order to include young people, it can't just be about having a seat at the table. It needs to be, as you said, co-creating and asking young people for their ideas and their experiences and truly integrating that into policies and practices. And the second thing is having mechanisms through which we can be accountable to those commitments. There are also often times where all these global organizations and member states and heads of state, they make all these commitments, but we don't not necessarily see the follow through, but also we don't see the tangible impact in our own communities. So there needs to be measures through which not only we can see that states are making a difference and that are actually taking these actions, but we need to be able to measure and to tell and ask young people, are you seeing the real difference in your community?
Yeah, I feel like this is just summarizing a little bit of what you both said, but yeah, asking them what they want to do and then giving them the resources to do it. I have seen so many instances where, yeah, we invite the youth in, we give them a little bit of a seat. And then they're like, okay, you want to do that? Okay, go ahead and do that, and we'll watch, and then we'll congratulate you once you've done it. But a lot of the time, what youth need is the resources, the money, the connections to actually make their dreams come true. And I think as adults or people in power, leaders of organizations, that's what you can give them is your resources, your money, and your time, and also your mentorship. Like, this is what has worked out for me. I'm not just gonna let you do it on your own. I'm also gonna be in partnership with you to get it done, but I'm also not gonna take over what you're trying to do. This is more of a micro example, but I think it can be applicable on a larger scale. But recently, we did just that with our kiddos. We asked them, what's something you want to see happen this month at school? And one thing they wanted to work on was celebrating Women's History Month. And we asked them how they wanted to do that. And they came up with this really amazing idea at recess where all of them would essentially write letters to women that really have influenced them. That could be their mothers, their sisters, prominent political figures. Me personally, I love Kimberly Crenshaw, so I wrote her a letter. But yeah, they did that, and we, gave them those tools. We printed out all the things they wanted. We bought all the supplies that they needed, and then they led it and they ran it. And I haven't seen so much engagement from all the kiddos who would usually rather go play games and play with each other, but instead they were coming to us, to our little table, and actually spending the time to think, you know, maybe a woman they've never even met in real life. And I think that's kind of a small example of how you can apply that on a larger scale. Ask them what they want and give them the resources to do it.
Any other questions?
Okay, I can ask one. We are on UCLA campus. Oh, sure. Yes.
Thank you. So we are on UCLA campus. What do you think the role of education, higher education specifically, would be? Where is the vision for young people?
Well, speaking as a student at this institution, thank you. I think that we need to amplify our voices. A lot of things that happen here on UCLA campus are student ran and student driven, and the university kind of really takes a step back and only kind of comes in when they're like, no, you can't do that though. So I think is really, just coming down and giving an avenue for higher education to meet students where they are at, but then also building a space for students who aren't even here yet. I think that can look a lot like we're here in LA and I look around and some of my classmates don't even represent the demographic of Los Angeles. And that really upsets me. I remember my first day coming here, I looked around and I was like, wow, there are a lot of faces here that do not represent the outside community of which we're in. And I think that's step one is diversifying this space. UCLA needs more students of color. UCLA needs more students that are first generation. UCLA needs more students that can bring in these outside perspectives and, make this school. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, and that's how we contribute. We don't need to go out into the community and pull it back in and bring it in. We can just bring community here and let them speak for themselves.
I think the universities present one of the best places for some conditions that have been identified by social science research for positive intergroup contact and facilitate collaboration and trust building, namely coming together at a higher identity. We are here as learners, students, teachers. We have an ethnic, religious, so on and so forth background, but we are not here as those. We have them, but our identity here, the primary identity, is the learner. And we are developing ourselves and helping others develop themselves. So that is one of the conditions that have been identified for group contact and collaboration to take place, a higher identity, and opportunities for collaboration, having a common goal and collaborating around a common goal. In classes, students form teams. In research, in other assignments, they form teams with people who are very different from them. I think this is a really excellent opportunity. I think the professors and administrators, if they are also more aware of this opportunity and design their learning experiences around this, the universities can even make more of an impact, leave more of an impact. I think already great things are happening in many, many universities, but there can always be, more.
This might make me sound like a nerd, but I'm okay with that. I think that what the role of higher education institutions is to give young advocates like ourselves the theoretical and critical frameworks to understand the work that we're doing. And I think while that's so important, many higher education institutions still struggle with that. And I think I speak for all the university students in this room when I say there's always one or two professors that speak to us in a way that others don't, of being able to connect that theory and the basis of all the work that we do to the practical insights and actions that we can take to actually make a difference. And some of my most memorable professors and teachers are the ones who said, look, this is where your ideas come from, this is the support, the academic support that you have, and here's how you can make a difference in the real world. And I think for a lot of us, it's not about getting that degree or putting that line on your resume. It's about taking our learnings from our classes and being able to apply them to the work that we're doing to further advance our advocacy.
I just want to quickly add to what you said, Leah. Yeah, give students opportunities to blossom. We want to do things. We want to do things like this, hop on panels, share our experiences and our opinions. We want to help our communities that we come from. We did not go to college to, just sit in a classroom and be talked at necessarily. We came here because we want to give opportunities to ourselves to excel, but also the communities that we come from to give back to them. We want to leave here with something and also give back. So give us opportunities to do so, and I can almost 100% guarantee there is a student that is more than happy and willing to take that responsibility on.
If I may, I'd like to add. Just following up on that opportunity, I think one very significant opportunity that universities can give to students is the international experiences. International collaboration is one of the themes or the main theme of this conference. So for many people, having an international experience of any kind is very difficult. It's not affordable or otherwise infeasible. But universities have such a diverse set of resources that they can channel to make this possible for students.
Greetings. It's nice to hear the possibility of a new narrative of inclusion and local representation. I'm an alumni since 1975. I graduated with a degree in political science here. I came with a vision, and UCLA offered me an opportunity to see that vision through. But of course, that was during the time when EOP was a good funding stream for bringing in local community, as we speak of, more representation of brown and black, and what LA is, also a majority made of. But then, of course, EOP was phased out, became URD, under recruitment, development, and then it became something else. And then eventually EOP doesn't exist anymore. So the interest there is not actually to afford, and this is my opinion, not necessarily to afford the following through of students from our community who have a vision but can't afford the fees for the institution as a university. And it's one of the things that back in those days, of course, we had a lot of protests during those times, and in that, became different classes of people that would say, when we get educated as local community, we get a little dangerous because we begin to take some things in empowerment of our education and realize that systems need to change. But then the university didn't necessarily like the whole energy of students protesting, taking over the chancellor's offices back in those days numerous times in order to get change. But it's good to see maybe we're coming full circle again, where we're beginning to maybe have the ability, not only on an international level, which this university is filled with, but also to begin to bring in, the local community again. And that's a really good thing that we need to do, because there are many young people in our communities here surrounding us throughout Los Angeles County that would love to come and get a college education at a university. I got here by junior college, and it helped me actually move on to my career stage. So, question is like, does UCLA still have that vision? Is there a vision, 5-year, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, to get back to bringing in local community people who have vision? And if that's part of an application, maybe that we can make that a part of an application. What is your vision? My vision at that time was to enhance my local community, be a part of change. And with that degree, it did help me actually get to places I normally would not get to as at that time. I was part of the Chicago movement at the time, so I was very active. Today I'm part of the Native American movement and the movimiento here. But in that way, I've had to find my own path after university and my experience here. But just to let the youth know in the room, you gotta hang on to that vision. You gotta keep a fire going for that vision. And when that fire gets low, we need to help each other tend to our fires together. And you call it passion. In our circles of culture, if you're a firekeeper, you need to keep your fire. It's a sacred thing. And that's what's going to change universities, systems. Out of that time came Gil Cedillo, congressman, came Antonio Villaraigosa, mayor. So, we hung on to our dreams and passions with the fire. And it's good to be in the fire circle again. I want to say thank you for that, but I hope that might be a new question now for what the vision of UCLA is also hints on for the next couple of years. Hope.
I think I can talk again, but I do want to bring it back to globally as well. I think UCLA is not unique in how it is as a university, right? I think nationally, there are a lot of universities like UCLA. Globally, there are a lot of universities like UCLA, and they're all kind of doing the same things as Daniel mentioned, right? How are they actually creating what Kevin said, not just tokenizing students of color, right? Not just bringing students here and then, wanting them to act appropriately, and when they act in ways that are not appropriate, punishing them, as we mentioned, protests. I think what universities across the world can do right now is understand when students are speaking out, in ways that might be disruptive, there is probably a reason for that. And it's kind of a sign of reaching out, if you will, like a call for help, a call for needing more support from the institution that they're coming from. And I think if more universities saw these acts as opportunities for conversation, we would see a lot more differences made.
Thank you for that. I just saw that we had a 2-minute wrap up. So I will wrap us up. So thank you again, panelists, for your insights. It sounds like in general, we talk about global partnerships and collaboration. In order for it to be meaningful, it needs to be a reflection of your internal world. Acknowledging your identities, acknowledging the power you may hold or may not hold, along with how does that can create an imbalance when you do approach a collaboration, a networking, connection, serving a community, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And as we go into that space, it's good to set intentions, to be mindful how we curate that space so that we can truly make a well-assessed impact that can truly make a transformative change. And as we go forward, I do hope for all the attendees that y'all can take a bit of this conversation and reflect on your own work. And thank you again this is the last panel for the conference, so stay tuned for our closing ceremony, but thank you, appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. For the
Feel free to email me. I know you were mentioning about
phenomenal
questions.
collaboration.
Next,
we are going to be taking a 15-minute break, and we're going to follow that by a dance activity.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot from you,
And then
actually.
we're going to do all of our closing plenary.
Just
We're going to have
please
15 minutes, everybody should
be with this energy.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
It's 15 minutes, and then we have just
Hello? I'm doing good, how are you? No, actually, I went to trade school. She's my girlfriend. I'm just here to support.
Exactly. I'm maybe want to get some information.
Okay.
Usually.
Yeah, no, I personally didn't go to school. I did the trade school, so I learned to weld. That's what I do. I'm just here supporting her. But what information were you trying to get? Just about
How
UCLA?
to, yeah, how to make